Welcome to Season 4, Episode 15 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to share some thoughts on how to undo your classroom management mistakes even mid-year when you realize that something just isn't working. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript, links to recommended resources, and to share your thoughts on the show. I remember volunteering at my church's Sunday school program many years ago, and I was filling in as the assistant to one of the second grade Sunday school teachers. There were 29 kids in a very tiny windowless classroom, and we were about to serve them animal crackers and juice. I had prepared 29 little portions, plus one extra for the kid who would inevitably spill his or hers, and I had everything lined up neatly on a tray. I looked at the teacher and was just about to ask her whether she wanted to select a few kids to come pass things out, or if she wanted to call the kids over by tables, when suddenly she picked up the tray and yelled loudly, "Okay, kids, come and get your animal crackers." My jaw dropped as 29 children shouted, "Yay!" and raced over to be the first one to grab their juice and snack. There was climbing on chairs, yelling, pushing, a few hurt feelings, 2 kids in tears, and of course, lots of spilled juice. It was one of the most chaotic moments I had ever witnessed in a classroom. When the kids had left for the morning and the teacher and I were cleaning up and discussing how things had went, I said casually, "Oh, that was kind of crazy at snack time, right?" She looked at me blankly. So I said, with all the kids rushing over to you to try to get their cookies and juice first. She paused for a moment and then said, I didn't really think about it. I guess it is a little crazy. But that's the way the teacher before me did it. I don't want to confuse the kids by doing something different now when this is what they're used to. I still remember that exchange all these years later because it made such a huge impression on me. This idea that a teacher would continue to do something stressful, impractical, and fairly dangerous for the kids simply because she didn't want to change things up when she'd already trained them to do it another way. And I think we all have examples of that from our own classrooms, right? Procedures and routines that we've taught that we know are wildly inefficient, but who has the time and energy to figure out a better way and retrain the kids? I'll tell you my personal philosophy on this. It is never too late to change something that's not working. Not in your classroom and not in your life. You don't have to wait for next year and an entirely new group of kids. You can and should modify your procedures, expectations, and teaching strategies anytime they're not effective, at any time during the school year. Don't worry that changing things up will cause them to question your authority and expertise. That if you admit to students that you told them to do something and it didn't work out very well, you're somehow incompetent as a teacher. I can't even begin to count how many ideas that I thought were brilliant totally flopped in the classroom. No one can accurately predict what's going to work perfectly with every single group of students. And trial and error is part of the process of becoming a master teacher. So don't worry about losing credibility by admitting something doesn't work. And definitely don't worry that making changes to the way you run your classroom will confuse the kids. Children are highly adaptable. They can adjust to new routines very quickly. Usually within just a day or two, almost everyone will have internalized the new routine. The key to heading off both of these potential issues of losing face and of confusing students is to articulate what's not working and how you plan to fix it. Tell the class your observations about the problem and share your solution. So first, do some brainstorming about what you'd like to change and how you would like things to run. Then have a conversation with your class about it. Don't try to sneak in a new procedure and act like that's the way you wanted things done all along. I have tried that and the kids were not fooled. Just level with them. Now, there's 2 different approaches that you can take to the conversation that you have. The first involves a 5 to 10 minute discussion with the class, and the second takes probably less than 2 minutes. I use the more in-depth method for the big stuff, like changes to the homework routine or centers and small group rotations. If it's something that has a big impact on students and that you've spent a lot of time training them to do and really getting their buy-in, then it's worth taking the time to involve them in creating new expectations. For big or important changes, you could have a conversation that goes something like this. Tell them, I've been thinking about how we manage, let's say, in this case, homework. I've been thinking about how we manage homework in our class. I've noticed a problem with people not copying down the correct page numbers and forgetting to bring the appropriate materials home. Have any of you noticed this happening? Why do you think this might be a problem? I've been trying to think of good solutions. What are your ideas for fixing this problem? So listen to what the kids say and then use that as a springboard. Say, that gives me an idea. You all touched on something that I was considering over the weekend. What if we tried blank? It would work like this, and explain your approach. Ask them, would you be willing to try that out for a week or so? Let's practice it, and then we'll have another conversation soon to talk about how it's working. We can always make changes then. Thank you guys for working with me and working together to try to come up with solutions. I know our class is going to run much more smoothly now that we've had this conversation and we've decided to try something new. So that might be a more in-depth conversation. For a minor classroom procedure, something like just getting drinks from the water fountain or passing in papers or pencil sharpening, I wouldn't spend that much time on it because the kids just don't care as much. I'll just say something like this. Let's say that the problem is pencil sharpening. I'll say, I noticed that our procedure for pencil sharpening isn't working very well these days. Sometimes I see that some kids don't have sharpened pencils ready at all times, and that causes a problem with them not being able to get their assignments done. I've also noted this happening and this happened. So I'd like to try this instead, and then explain the approach. Does that make sense to you? Let's practice right now. Team 1, can you model how to follow this new procedure for us? All right, let's watch Team 1 as they try it out. So I hope that gives you an example of how undoing your classroom management mistakes is really just as simple as acknowledging that things aren't working and talking to students about it. You can brainstorm better procedures together, or you can have solutions in mind and sort of guide the kids to come to the understanding on their own. Frame the whole conversation as I did. It's just something that you're trying out together. It's something that you can revise at any time. This teaches kids how to problem solve and how to continually monitor whether strategies are working and be able to adapt them as needed. It also takes the pressure off of you to solve every problem in the classroom. Let's face it, with some of the dilemmas that we're facing, like getting students to stop talking when you're giving directions, there's not going to be any easy or clear solution for it. So just raising the concern with students will often go a long way in creating change because it makes them aware of the problem. This puts them on your side so that you're working together to make the classroom run more smoothly. Now, to be honest, I've found that my attitude has the biggest effect on how smoothly our routines and procedures go. You know how sometimes you ask the class to do something, but mentally you're thinking, they're totally not going to follow the directions. I just know it. In 5 seconds, this kid's going to be pushing and yelling. 5 people are going to forget to turn anything in. I'm just going to be repeating myself all over again. I know that tendency well. And when I'm mentally creating a list of all the things the kids have done wrong and predicting how many ways they'll screw up next and bemoaning how poorly they listen and follow directions, I tend to get discouraged. And then I take it out on the class. But when I choose to be patient and take the time to involve kids in creating and practicing expectations, I reconnect with the feeling that we are a team. So here's the takeaway truth that I want you to remember this week. My thoughts create my feelings. My feelings affect my behaviors. And my behaviors determine whether students feel stressed out or capable of doing their best. So that's my advice to you. Recognize what's not working and choose to create change. It's never too late to fix something that's not working. Be supportive of the kids as they adjust and keep an optimistic attitude about the outcome. Each year that you teach, it will get easier to find what works and what doesn't. So don't be afraid to experiment. Take the kids along on the journey with you and learn together. Now, before I sign off, I want to remind you that November 15th is the last chance to apply for one of 20 scholarships that are available for the 40-Hour Teacher Workweek Club. The club provides professional development on productivity to educators who want to focus on what really matters, both in and outside of the classroom. Thousands of teachers have already started trimming hours off their work week. They're getting organized, streamlining routines, they're giving kids ownership of the classroom, and they're being truly intentional about how they use their instructional, contractual, and personal time. So if you've been thinking about joining us, but it's not in your budget, head over to thecornerstoneforteachers.com/scholarship. That's where you can learn more and apply. cornerstoneforteachers.com/scholarship. November 15th is the last day that we'll accept applications. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic week. You can do this. And remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it. Truth for Teachers is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more great podcast recommendations, go to edupodcastnetwork.com. That's edupodcastnetwork.com.